Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and I've been playing classic World of Warcraft here and there. It isn't a game that I'm playing regularly or religiously, but I've been definitely having a lot of fun and trying to put in as much time as I could into classic WoW, and I've been having a lot more fun. I've taken a lot of time to look at different guides and different bits of information in order to have myself an enjoyable classic WoW experience, and so far I've settled in with my rogue at around level 30, but this isn't where I'm going to end. I'm going to continue leveling. I do want to do this video as a guide of some of the useful information that I found recently when it comes to my rogue, all the information that I found that has been useful to me so far, and share that useful information with you guys in hopes that you guys will find this information helpful or useful when it comes to you leveling your own rogue in classic World of Warcraft. The stuff I'm about to spit at you guys isn't going to be anything new. Vanilla World of Warcraft in Classic WoW has been around for a while. It's a game that was played back in 2004, but also played on private servers for a very long time. So a lot of this information is probably going to be a repeat of some of the what older and newer Classic WoW guides have been all about. But I just want to share with you guys some of the information that I've learned so far and share some of the tips that I found helpful in today's video. So without further ado, let's dive into this Classic Rogue World of Warcraft leveling guide. Let's talk a bit about the rogue leveling builds. There are a couple different builds that you guys will find useful, and I want to go over the popular builds that are out right now. There is the solo build with a sword spec, there is the duo or more people in your group with a dagger build, and then I want to talk a bit about the build that I'm running, the build I'm kind of trying to theorycraft so far. So let's talk a little bit about the builds that are available. And I know a lot of you guys playing your rogue, you'll figure out that in classic rogue is not quite as easy to level as it is on retail. Rogue is actually one of the harder classes to level. Not the hardest, I still would give that to the warrior, but rogue is definitely one of the hardest. You don't have a lot of self-healing, you don't really have reliable ways of dealing damage sometimes, because a lot of your abilities are going to miss all the time. So as a rogue, you got to use tricks and guile and whatever you can in order to gain a competitive edge over your enemy. If you're going to be playing rogue solo and you want yourself a build with zero BS, you just want to have a reliable build, you're going to go with the sword spec. The sword spec is going to focus into having at least main hand sword weapon and either a sword or a dagger offhand. So this is going to be the build. You're going to pick up 2 points into improve Sinister Strike, since you'll be using Sinister Strike a lot. 3 points into improve Gouge is recommended for all rogues. It is better than going for Lightning Reflexes in the row. You're going to pick up 5 points into deflection immediately so you can get yourself riposte. Riposte is great because it's a very short cooldown. It has very little energy, and you'll be facing your enemy a lot with a higher chance to parry with deflection. You should be able to get a parry here and there and use this ability right after, especially huge on humanoid enemies that carry a weapon. Being able to disarm them leaves you less time having to sit down and eat food, and more time leveling and moving from one mob to the next to the next. You're also going to put up 2 points into endurance so you can get cooldowns of your sprint and evasion. It also is recommended to put up 2 points into improve sprint. You're going to put 5 points into precision in order to increase the chance for your weapons to hit. You're going to miss a lot as a rogue. Get used to that. You're going to put 5 points into dual wield, but actually right before that, you should pick up Blade Flurry. It is going to be a big cooldown. One of the very first cooldowns you'll pick up from the talent tree, and you should be using this as often as you can, whether you're trying to cleave enemies in dungeons or out in the world, or whether you're trying to nuke enemies solo, since it does increase your attack speed by 20%. 5 points into dual specialization, so your offhand attacks can do more. They are less likely to miss, so you'll get a lot of more value since you're auto-attacking. Then you're going to put a couple points into aggression to increase the damage of your Sinister Strike, which you're spamming a lot, and eviscerate, and then 2 points into weapon expertise, since you'll be using swords. After filling out the combat rogue tree, you're going to move into assassination, pick up 5 points into malice for that crit chance, because you are going to pick up lethality at the end. And then it is recommended to fill out improve slice and dice to grab yourself murder. You can fill out lethality, you can fill out relentless strikes, and a chance for your common points to refund you energy. Whenever you have finishers and you're spending common points on them, they have a chance to give you back an extra common point back. Welcome to level 60 as your sword combat rogue. However, if you decide to play with daggers, daggers ends up working really well if you are not leveling solo. If you have someone else that is willing to draw aggro for you, so you can get behind the enemy reliably and hit it with backstab. Backstab offers far more damage, but at a pretty big loss of being able to fight enemy one-on-one, since you are going to be front-loading most of your damage around daggers. With the backstab build, you're going to go with 5 points into opportunity so you can increase the damage of that backstab, and that's all you're going to see in that subtlety row. Then you got to start making your way down the combat tree, 5 points into improved Cinder Strike, since you will be using Cinder Strike once in a while when an enemy cannot turn their back to you, and then improved Gouge for that CC. You're going to pick up 3 points into improved backstab, 5 points into precision. You're going to follow up with 2 points into endurance for mobility and improved sprint again for mobility. 5 points into dagger specialization because you are going to be able to have nice synergy between the crits. Then pick up yourself blade flurry. 5 points into dual specialization. You don't need aggression since you're not spamming Cinder Strike, so we're going to put 2 points into weapon expertise to give you extra skill with daggers. And then adrenaline rush. Moving on to assassination tree with 5 points into malice. You're going to pick up 3 points into improved slice and dice, 2 points into murder for extra damage against humanoids, giants, beasts, and dragonkin, and then finally fill it out with lethality until your last level 60. So that's going to be the dagger build that you'll be playing with your friends or a group of friends if you are able to consistently get backstabs for your enemies. Now I want to talk about a bit about my build that I'm running, and this is something you guys definitely should consider. If you're someone who just want to get to max level in World of Warcraft Classic and you just want to make sure you get in there as efficiently as possible, feel free to follow the other talent builds that I talked about earlier. They are pretty boring though, so at least I found them personally boring. You might find them pretty fun. So for my own personal taste, I am not leveling solo. I am leveling with another person. Me and Krent have been leveling together as a rogue mage combo, and I decided I really needed to change my build. I was really getting bored of the sword solo build for my rogue. Didn't really want to try the dagger build, but I wanted to try something different. I heard about hemorrhage and how fun this ability can be, and I wanted to mix it up a little bit. I wanted to get a slightly different playstyle for hemorrhage, so this is going to be my current build that I'm running for my rogue. I'm focusing on a couple abilities like ambush to get the big openers and more chances than not to crit with those openers. Backstab is still going to be primarily most of my damage, but I did want to pick up hemorrhage if in case I needed another spammable ability or something to maintain a debuff. I'm not rolling into dungeons or raids really, so debuff slots are not really as important for me yet. Eventually they are going to be, and hemorrhage might not be the playstyle for raids, but right now in group content and in dungeons it works out for me. So with that being said, we're going to put 5 points into opportunity. Actually, let's reset it. Then we need to unlock the third row. I didn't feel like any of these talents were really important. You could go into camouflage if you hate the movement speed while in stealth. You could put points into elusiveness if you want to get your vanish abilities back faster, but I went master deception so I can always sneak around my enemies like I would in retail. In Classic, enemies are way more likely to spot you, so being able to swing in front of the enemy and really circle around them to get those ambushes every time, I decided to go for Master of Deception, and I had a lot of fun with it so far. Then, in this row, we're going to pick up a couple abilities. First, Improved Ambush, 100%. Increase the chance of your ambush by 45%, so basically almost a 50% chance that your ambush will crit. If you crit, you can get from mob to mob to mob a lot faster. Then I'm going to put up 1 point Ghost Strike since I am leveling and being able to put any points into any ability that does decent damage. And Ghost Strike does okay damage. Sometimes I am tanking enemies, so having that extra dodge is nice, but also just need a point to put into something to unlock the next row. And then I'm going to put a point into Initiative. Then we have ourselves Serrated Blades in order to unlock Hemorrhage. So I'm going to put points into Serrated Blades, and now I can use whatever points I have to fill it out until I unlock Hemorrhage. Gonna put point into Initiative, second point, and then we get Hemorrhage. Now in my current build, this is where I'm at right now. I don't know if I want to pick up Preparation. I don't think Dirty Deeds or Heightened Senses or Setup is that important, so I think I'm going to start focusing in the damage row in the Assassination tree at that point. Then what I'm thinking, I'm going to put points into Malice, because I do want to unlock Lethality, so my Hemo can do more crit damage, my Backstabs can do more crit damage, and I'll be using a lot of those abilities besides my Ambush Opener as for majority of my rotation, so better pick those up as soon as I can. So 5 points into Malice to give me crit. And I'm thinking maybe put points into Slice and Dice, but by then I'm not even level 40-ish, so I want to have the improved Slice and Dice, so the Slice and Dice wouldn't be quite as powerful. I could potentially put points into Improved Eviscerate, or maybe even Remorseless Attacks in order to give me a higher chance to crit every time I kill an enemy that yields XP. I think at this point I'll put points into Improved Viscerate, because I can get more eviscerates out with Hemo build if I am spamming it, or if I'm going for the backstab, I'm getting those initiative procs, extra common points tagged onto my ambushes. I can get far more value with improved eviscerates. Then I'm gonna, I think, put points into improved slice and dice until I unlock lethality, and then spam points into that. As soon as I have that, I'm thinking it's a choice between improved poisons to have a higher chance to apply them, or vile poisons where the poisons simply deal more damage. Then we're gonna pick up ourselves Cold Blood, and we actually have a couple points left. We could literally pick up Seal of Fate if we wanted to, but I think I'll fill out the rest of my tree with Murder, Ruthlessness, Relentless Strikes, and we could go a couple points into Seal of Fate, or maybe take those points out and put those points earlier into Improve Gouge, and that'll be more or less my build. Is it a functional build? Yes. Will it do well? Yes, it will. It actually has some synergies here and there, and with the playstyle that I'm looking at, and with the macros I'm using where I'm swapping weapons all the time, you can actually get a lot of min-maxed value out of the build. But it is a playstyle I choose to play, and actually, I quite enjoy it. If you find yourself a build, and let's say there's somebody who wants to be a little bit more explorative with Classic, if you find yourself a weird, wacky build, but it somehow goes well together, even if it might not be the fastest potential build, but as long as it's efficient, as long as you are able to kill enemies, and as long as you are able to develop synergies that you can actually use, you might as well play a build that you prefer and a build that you like. I mean, why not? If there is some kind of weird, wacky build that actually has some synergy that can come together, you should play that build. I think you guys will have a lot more fun with it. If, let's say, the builds that you're playing right now might be a little bit boring, maybe you just feel like you're just kind of struggling and you're like, okay, I'm just playing this just to get to max level, you might as well enjoy your leveling experience in Classic. Most of Classic leveling is going to end up being you leveling. Most of Classic gameplay is going to end up being with you leveling, so you might as well enjoy every single second of it while you have it. Some of the other rogue tips that I can tell you guys, and this is some of the stuff I either had to look up or some of the stuff that I was told. A lot of this stuff, since I didn't play vanilla World of Warcraft back in the day, I thought were either rumors or maybe half-truths, so I had to look this stuff to make sure I can confirm this. One of the things that I was told a lot is, if you are using abilities like Sinister Strike, you should always have your heaviest weapon in your main hand. I had to really pull up Sinister Strike, and for the longest time I couldn't understand it. I don't know why it was so difficult for me to understand the concept, but it makes all the sense in the world. So, Sinister Strike is an ability, an instant strike that causes 15 damage in addition to your normal weapon damage. The thing is about heavy weapons like this Butcher's Slice right here, with a speed of 2.9, making it a way heavier weapon with swings, it's going to have a bigger range of damage. So a weapon that's faster is going to have, like this Dagger for example, it is a different level Dagger, but it is a faster weapon, and it's going to have a smaller DPS, or damage per second to it, in a small range, but it hits a lot. So it's going to do a lot of hits like a paper cut, but it's not going to do one big swing. With Butcher Slicer, you have a far bigger damage pool between damage 23 and 44, so 11.6 damage per second. And every time you use Sinister Strike, that weapon damage gets applied, which is why you want to go with a heavy weapon, because that weapon ultimately is the one that deals the most damage. However, why would you want a faster weapon? For example, an offhand Dagger would be quite a great choice for an Outlaw rogue, primarily because it hits faster. And what you can do is you can apply a poison to that Dagger, like instant poison can go into my Dagger. Yes, have the weapon bind to me. It says it to me all the time, even though the weapon is bound to me. But then you have a Dagger with a poison to it. Since the weapon swings faster, you have more chances to apply that instant poison. With a heavier weapon, I have less swings, and so overall less chances to apply poison to my enemy. But with a Dagger, you have a far more, so as a rogue, diversifying your weapon slots isn't a terrible idea. You could just go with double Dagger, you could go with double sword, depending if you are sword or a Dagger build, but diversifying isn't completely terrible. Having one of each weapon also allows for a fun playstyle where you can swap weapons around so you can get access to different abilities, which I'll talk about in just a moment. So I have made a couple of macros to let me swap weapons around. This is something you guys might actually find quite useful if you do decide to play some sort of a sword Dagger build, and if you do want to make max damage. You could just put a sword in main hand, Dagger in offhand, or another sword in the offhand, and just play the game and never change a thing. But I kind of been having a lot of fun with this, so I gotta share it. First of all, I'm in a couple macros. Every time I want to use an ability such as Hemorrhage, which does more damage if I have my heavier sword equipped in, or if I want to use Backstab, which requires me to have a dagger, or ambush for that matter, I do want to make a macro that allows me to swap to my weapon, but also not really make a keybind and a macro for every one of those. I don't want to have a keybind to swap to sword, and keybind to swap to macro, and then a keybind for hemo and a backstab. So I stuck them together. So this is what I got working with. For my basic abilities like Hemorrhage, Backstab, and Ambush, this is the macro I'm using. And all you have to do is replace the ability name and the name of your weapon. So what this macro will do is, first of all, it'll try to equip whatever weapon you want in your main hand. Right now I have two weapons. One is called the Butcher's Slicer, which is my sword, and the other is called Chris, which is a dagger you can buy from a vendor. What this macro will do is it will first check to see if the weapon that I'm picking for Hemorrhage, it will be the heavier weapon, does more damage with Hemorrhage. So this one first would try to equip a sword in my main hand when I first press Hemorrhage. In combat, what this will do is actually will take a global for me to swap weapons if the sword isn't already in my main hand. Then it'll let me use Hemorrhage and also start attack, so I can start auto attacking the enemy. Same thing, if I want to go for Backstab, I simply copy this macro over, change at the bottom, cast Hemorrhage into cast Backstab, and change the equipment slot instead of Butcher Slicer onto my Dagger. I also have a simple macro, very similar to it, but for Ambush, with a modifier for stealth. So every time I'm in stealth and I just press Backstab before I'm even attacking my enemy, it will always make sure that the dagger is in the main hand. The only thing you would have to do with this macro is specify the weapons that you are using. So if you get an upgrade for a dagger or an upgrade of the sword, you will have to go back into the macro and modify the part where it says the weapon's name. The openers for your rogues are also going to be somewhat important when it comes to leveling in Classic. There's 3 different abilities that allow you for a different opener. They're all going to be found in the Assassination tree. We have ourselves Ambush, which requires the dagger in the first place. It costs 60 energy, and think of it as an empowered version of a Backstab. Ambush the target, causing 250% of weapon damage plus 100 to the target. Must be stealthed and behind the target. Requires a dagger, awards 1 combo point. Ambush is going to be your playstyle primarily with a dagger, but if you want to, let's say, play a sword build, it could make a macro where you swap weapons, and let's say every time you're in stealth and you want to go for ambush, you can make a macro where you swap to the dagger so you can get those ambushes. Ambushes can definitely turn the tide of a battle because they don't really focus on CC or damage over time as the other ones do. It's just a raw amount of damage that you can get out into your enemy in the opener. And with a build that I have, sometimes you can also get a critical strike to it, and it kind of just lets you initiate the damage, get that early advantage over your enemy, and get the most value on the damage right after. So the next opening ability is going to be Garrote. It does bleed damage to your enemy over 18 seconds. It can be used with a sword or a dagger, so if you are playing a sword build and you don't have ambush opener, but you want to go for damage, Garrote is primarily your only option. It costs slightly less energy than an ambush, and it does really good damage over time. So you can actually use this in a weird playstyle where you kind of play this bleed build with your rogue, pretending like you're Feral from, let's say, Legion or Battle for Azeroth. For this purpose, I'm going to be putting Crippling Poison on both of my weapons because you want your Crippling Poison to proc. Some people recommend putting both of these, but just to give an example, you could go for a bleed build with your rogue where you bleed the enemy out, spend less time getting auto-attacked by the mob, and then more time going from one mob to the next just by bleeding them dry. So for the opener on this Fetid Corpse, I'll open up with a Garrote. Then I want to get myself a slow on the enemy, build up a couple combo points, got my slow, gonna get my rupture off. And you can actually just kite the enemy like this, let him bleed out for a bit as long as I have a slow, and then engage with them once the bleeds are almost over. So you can utilize this, or you can simply just go back to your auto attack and together in conjunction with the bleed from your Garrote and get the most value on the damage on the enemy. Now the final ability for your rogue openers is going to be Cheap Shot. 60 energy, it stuns the enemy for 4 seconds and awards you 2 combo points. This one has, I guess all the openers have different uses, depending on how you want to open. If you are a sword builder, you only kind of stuck to Garrote. If you're a dagger, you really should be prioritizing ambush. Where I use cheap shot a lot is in dungeon content. Let's say my tank is about to attack or try to aggro an enemy that ends up being a caster. Or let's say he aggroed 2 enemies, one of them is a caster. I usually cheap shot the caster, use the common points to get myself a full slice and dice, and then turn my attention to the primary focus target. So this one I use mostly in dungeon situations. There's not a lot of situations where you would use cheap shot on mobs. In PvP, however, if you are in a PvP server, being able to lock an enemy down with a cheap shot can be quite reliable. But cheap shot, what's nice about it is it does generate 2 common points. Another thing that can be used about cheap shot is, let's say a mob sees you while you are in stealth and they notice you. You can sometimes gain a cheap shot even as they are about to attack you. With abilities like ambush and garrote, there's 0 chance for you to get any value on them because you can get behind the enemy. But with a cheap shot, you can do it straight to their face and still get some value damage, or I guess value CC and some sort of an opener rather than no opener. As a rogue, you should also check in with your class trainer every now and again. Rogues is one of those classes that's fairly slow when it comes to leveling. So, being able to check in with your class trainer to unlock some key abilities that will help you have an easier time along your journey. Making sure to update so your abilities are doing the most amount of damage they can, whether they are part of your rotation or even small things like a little bit stronger rank 2 kick that does a little bit more damage every time you get to interrupt an enemy. Those things really do come in a long way. So as a rogue, you should get used to visiting your trainers quite often, but you don't need to buy every single skill yet. So, for example, Sinister Strike is an ability I don't really use as often. I just picked up Hemorrhage, and that's my main filler if I do need to phase the enemy. Sinister Strike is not bad, however, and it does quite a lot of damage, but right now I'm perfectly okay with Hemorrhage since I am primarily working on a backstep playstyle. Feint, so far haven't had any issues with my threat, so I haven't upgraded that one yet. Exposed Armor, so far haven't ran into a lot of elites yet, and eventually we'll pick up Exposed Armor and rank it up. But right now I can save my gold and buy the important stuff. So I can always have a little bit of gold extra on the side, whether I want to buy gear that can make my leveling easier, whether I want to save up for my first mount, whether I want to use my gold for any purpose whatsoever. I'll always have that extra gold on the side for the emergency rainy day. Now, I know this video is here to be a guide for you guys, and one of the things that you can do when it comes to looking up a guide to figure out which abilities are the most important, which abilities to invest your money into as soon as you are leveling, then there was guides for that. I will have those guides down in the description below if you guys are overwhelmed with the abilities. But what I personally have been doing is I actually been enjoying trying to figure out which abilities are important for me, trying to rationalize it for myself. I feel like it's a great skill to develop early, especially for Classic World of Warcraft, because this game is very much punishing if you make wrong decisions. But I think it's kind of fun to have that kind of like appeal behind the game too. So you guys can do this any way you want to, whether you want to explore for yourselves and make mistakes, or if you want to look up a guide, I have one description for you. Just want to make this video as helpful for you as I can. Now, what professions should you run on your rogue if you want a quest, but also might want to make a pretty penny on the side? The 2 easiest professions where you can make the most amount of gold without having to impede your questing experience are going to be skinning, because you'll be facing a lot of beasts throughout your level 1 through 60 experience, as well as herbalism. You'll be questing outdoors a lot. And when it comes to herbalism, usually have to choose between herbalism or mining. Herbalism means you'll be out in the world, out in the plains, out in the grass fields, while mining means you'll be hanging out by the mountains and caves. Most of the quests don't happen in caves, so this is why herbalism is going to be the easiest. Both skinning and herbalism can net you quite a bit of profit, especially if you can sell them on the auction house. The more rare the skins, the leathers, as well as the plants you'll collect, the more money you'll be able to make. It's quite a nice profession to make some money on the side, but you won't really have any end game capabilities besides running around collecting flowers and collecting skins from rare animals. But if you are looking for a more end game profession combo without impeding the leveling speed for your rogue, I would go with skinning and leatherworking. Skinning because you can get all the skins and use those skins for that leatherworking, which creates a nice synergy. Leatherworking can be used for a variety of different things, like crafting gear for yourself, crafting gear to put up on the auction house, or simply sell to a vendor for a little bit extra free silver. And the leatherworking gear in the end game does mean you'll have a potential to unlock some of the best in-slot pieces once you are max level. That doesn't mean you have to visit Orgrimmar or Stormwind quite a lot more than usual if you do want to maintain and keep up with your recipes and keep up with the profession. But if you do want to go for the long-term haul and you want to get yourself a decent profession, at least at the very beginning for your character, without impeding your questing process, then I would say either skinning and herbalism or skin and leatherworking. Now, I should say this, these professions that I just listed are not the best for gold. There's a couple other variations of professions, but these two synergize the best with what you'll be doing on your rogue. If you are trying to make the most amount of bank, you're probably looking at something like alchemy and maybe a bit of mining, maybe a bit of blacksmithery, any of the professions that have any sort of specific thing that you can do with those professions that has a cooldown. Certain professions will eventually unlock your abilities where you can create rare items on a cooldown, like a 4-day cooldown or a 3-day cooldown, and those are the professions that can get you the most amount of gold. So, depending what you want to do, I just want to offer you guys some professions that you can do, but primarily the focus is going to be getting a rogue to max level. And that's going to be everything that I have for you guys so far. Hopefully all of you guys enjoyed this video. If you were wondering how I am leveling my rogue or looking for some of the rogue leveling tips. I know that I didn't include every tip out there, but I just wanted to include the tips that I found useful for myself when looking up some of this information. Overall, I feel like the most important part for me is to play World of Warcraft Classic in the most enjoyable way. So the most enjoyable way I found that works for me would be a build that I like, would be professions that I enjoy, and the company that I keep around me whenever I'm getting some of the quests and even dungeons done. I feel like my favorite way to even leveling Classic so far has been through dungeons. I love group content with the little things that a rogue can do. I feel like I make such a massive impact in my group's progress, whether I get to interrupt a mob or throw some sort of crowd control on an enemy here and there, and it just feels so much fun. Anyway, been having a lot of fun with Classic. Haven't been able to play it nearly as much as Retail, for example, but still want to share some more Classic videos with you guys. Let me know if you guys want to see more Classic videos on the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed, and I'll see all of you guys in another video.